Hello, my horror-loving dudes. I'm KillJoy Jake, and today we're talking a little bit about Five Nights at Fredward's, Insidious 5, Evil Dead Rise, and Scream 7. Well, not really. We're talking about Scream 6, actually, today. Some box office numbers we gotta get into. Let's get into it! Yeah!
Well, sometimes that is better.
So talking a little bit about this Freddy Fazbear fella. It was announced yesterday by Jason Blumhouse himself that the Five Nights at Freddy's movie is coming out this year for Halloween on October 27th. Last night, Jason Blum took to Twitter to say, as promised, Five Nights at Freddy's fans, you asked and we delivered. The Five Nights at Freddy's movie is coming this Halloween on October 27th of 2023. 205 days until the party. And that is the big news. Now, while that is very exciting for us Five Nights at Freddy's fans, old Jason kind of forgot to put a little tiny nugget of information in there. That the movie is simultaneously dropping on Peacock, just like how they did with the last two Halloween films. Now, I got a few thoughts on this. First of all, I'm really excited for Five Nights at Freddy's. Overall, don't take all these criticisms as a negative thing. I am hyped for this movie. I mean, Shaggy's gonna be in it. PETA's gonna be in it. Jim Henson's Creature Shop is doing all the animatronics. This is gonna be sick. But I just feel like maybe Blumhouse is rushing out some stuff. I'm very excited to have a big Blumhouse October once again. Like last year, we were super hyped for Halloween Ends. This year, we got The Exorcist and Five Nights at Freddy's all in 1 month from Blumhouse. I'm super hyped for both of them. But I just feel like maybe they should take some more time on these movies. There was a lot of Halloween Ends, despite all of my criticisms. You can throw all those out the window. There's a lot of things about that movie that felt very, very rushed, and I think it's because they filmed that movie and edited it and did all the post-production in like a span of 9 months. That's just not enough time for these movies to be made, at least I don't think. And now on top of that, the movie is releasing in theaters, but it's going to Peacock simultaneously, which means it's going to lose some money. Now here's the thing about that. Five Nights at Freddy's is expected to probably have a pretty big opening weekend. Let's be honest, there's a lot of fans of this franchise. We've been wanting this movie for a long time now, and it's finally coming out this year. Now, however you feel about both Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, they were not in any way box office flops. Halloween Kills had a $20 million budget and still made well over $100 million. Same with Halloween Ends, $33 million budget, made $105 million at the box office. They still did really well, despite the fact that they were once again dropped on Peacock the same day of their release. I just think that we should be giving these movies a little bit of a head start. Like, give them like a week or two in theaters, at least, and then put it on Peacock. I just think about how much more money Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends could have made. I mean, you know, like I said, they made money. They made way more than their budget, for sure, but I feel like they could have made even more money if it wasn't on Peacock. And I know it's really convenient, and it's really nice to watch a movie at home instead of going out to the theaters. Trust me, I get that. But at the same time, we gotta show support for these movies. And right now, we're kind of just showing support for these fledgling streaming services that no one really cares about. I'm sorry, Peacock, but I like to call you Poopcock. We live in a world right now where there's like 100 streaming services and there's no way you can pay for all of them. I mean, that's just the truth of it. Talking more about Five Nights at Freddy's, in the film, a troubled security guard begins working at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. While spending his first night on the job, he realizes the night shift at Freddy's won't be so easy to make it through. The film stars Josh Hutcherson, who also played a character named after a certain type of bread in the Hunger Games, and Matthew Lillard, Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, and everybody's favorite Ghostface. I'm still really hyped for this movie, don't get me wrong, but like, they're clearly just dropping this on Peacock once again to kind of prop up their streaming service. And I think that's just Universal breathing down the necks of the Blumhouse people. But at the end of the day, it just kind of sucks. I mean, look at Halloween 2018. That movie made well over $200 million at the box office, and it wasn't simultaneously released on something else. That Halloween trilogy could have made way more money, I think. And imagine if Five Nights at Freddy's is really successful, and a lot of people really like it. Well, guess what? We're gonna want more of them. And the absolute #1 thing that is so important to getting a sequel to a new movie, it can be a piece of dog shit. It doesn't matter. If it makes good money, they'll keep making them. Hollywood is a business at the end of the day. It's an unfortunate truth. And listen, don't take this as a negative thing. I respect the out of Blumhouse. I think they put out some killer movies, and I think they actually get a little too much sometimes. I just want Five Nights at Freddy's fans to be happy. They've been waiting for this movie since the game came out. That's way too damn long to be waiting for a movie. So I want this thing to be good and successful for those fans out there who have been waiting a very, very, very long time to see this bad boy. So fingers crossed right now that it's good and that it's successful at the box office. And maybe the Peacock thing won't deter it all that much. Now let's talk a little bit about some admittedly older news, but something that kind of crept up out of nowhere that I didn't even realize happened until some people in my comments section pointed it out to me. The title for Insidious 5 has been changed from Fear the Dark to The Red Door. Now I remember when that original title got announced, it was like Insidious, Fear the Dark, and everybody was just like, what? Fear the Dark? Yeah, no shit, I fear the dark. It's scary. There's demons hiding out in there. But I feel like calling this movie The Red Door is just a little more fitting, especially after the last movie's subtitle was The Last Key. Is it a little cheesy? Is it a little goofy? Yes, but this franchise has always been rooted in just a little bit of camp. And honestly, it's kind of why I love it. I love that it doesn't take itself too seriously, but then can have these really scary, fun moments. But talking a little more about this subtitle, I think it's a little more appropriate here because I feel like this movie, and once again, none of this is confirmed, all just my fan theories, I feel like this movie is getting back to the lipstick demon. We don't really know that much about the lipstick face demon. I mean, think about Insidious 2 for a second. We went into this whole ass backstory about Parker Crane, Bride in Black, that character. We know so much about that certain entity, but I feel like we don't about the lipstick demon, or like the man who can't breathe, or let's talk about Insidious The Last Key, Keyface. I mean, we know that this guy, whoever, this entity is, has all these fingers that are made of keys, and they can open up all the doors and shit. He's fingering keyholes like this. But we don't really know all that much about the lipstick demon, and this character has had a presence in just about every single sequel. Not only is Joseph Bishara's character beloved by fans, but I feel like there's also more to it that is going to come back into the story literally right now this summer. Now, it's not confirmed that Bishara will be reprising his role, but if you look on Google right now, he is listed under the main cast. Now, Google is in no way a good source for movie stuff, which is kind of surprising, right? You would think, okay, maybe they'd list correct information. No, sometimes if you look up Scream 6, it still lists that Anya Taylor-Joy was in that movie, but I must have missed that scene. But the movie is literally about Dalton again and the Lambert family. Let's read that plot description. Set 10 years after the end of the previous first two films, Josh Lambert heads east to drop his son Dalton off at an idyllic ivy-covered university. However, Dalton's college dream becomes a nightmare when the repressed demons of his past suddenly return to haunt them both. So from that plot description, it seems like the Bride in Black and the lipstick face demon will be back for this new movie, kind of doing something similar to what we did in that first film. While I loved both of the prequel films kind of showing off these different types of entities, which I love both of them, The Man Who Can't Breathe and Keyface, love them, great stuff. I'm really excited for a return to form here in a movie that's more of a sequel, less of a prequel sequel thing. Like whatever the hell was going on in Last Key. And now with this title of The Red Door, I feel like we're going to dive a little deeper into the mythos of what the Further actually is. We know that there's many people in this universe that can access it and go into it, but like, is there more to it that we can do with that? Are we going to explore that here in Insidious 5? I kinda hope so. The story for Insidious 5 is coming from Lee Winnell, who wrote the previous 4 films, but this one will be written by Scott Teems, who also worked on Firestarter from Blumhouse, as well as Halloween Kills. This movie is also a huge deal for Patrick Wilson, who's not only starring in this film as his respective Josh Lambert character, but he's also directing it in his directorial debut. This is super cool to me because Lee Winnell's directorial debut is the 3rd film. So maybe we can get a bunch of horror movies from Patrick Wilson at some point in the future, because look at what Lee Winnell did after he did Insidious 3, man. He went on to do movies like Upgrade and The Invisible Man, which are terrific if you have not seen those. Super, super, super underrated. I'm really hyped for Insidious 5 though. Just when I thought the franchise would start to lose its luster in the 4th entry, it gave us something really fresh and fun in that 4th entry. It did some world building like I was talking about, so I'm expecting nothing less from this movie, maybe kind of expand it out a little more as well here. We have just gotten ourselves a new update on Evil Dead Rise. Let's talk a little bit about this final review trailer. Now, I got to see Evil Dead Rise early a couple weeks ago down at Horror Hound in Cincinnati. I'm gonna keep talking about it because it was so cool. I'm so sorry. What I will say is maybe avoid this final trailer. Like, definitely go see the movie in a couple of weeks when it comes out, but maybe avoid this final trailer. There's a few shots in there that I'm like, ooh, that's a little spoilery. I don't like that. But speaking of seeing this movie later on in the month, the tickets have officially gone on sale, which is why we just got this badass new trailer that, like I said, maybe a little spoilery. Don't watch the trailer, but buy your tickets, go see this bad boy on April 21st. The plot synopsis for Evil Dead Rise reads, in the 5th Evil Dead film, a road-weary Beth pays an overdue visit to her older sister Ellie, who is raising 3 kids on her own in a cramped LA apartment. The sisters' reunion is cut short by the discovery of a mysterious book deep in the bowels of Ellie's building, giving rise to flesh-possessing demons and thrusting Beth into a primal battle for survival, as she is faced with the most nightmarish version of motherhood imaginable. Let me tell you, they do justice to that plot description. This movie is insane and will do some surprising things. In my spoiler-free review, I talked a little bit about how Evil Dead 2 fans specifically are gonna get a big kick out of this movie. I can't recommend it enough. Go see it. Alyssa Sutherland is amazing as a Deadite. That's not a spoiler if you've seen at least one trailer. Come on. Also, that 96% on Rotten Tomatoes is very much so deserved. But now let's get into a bit of a Scream 6 update, talking about how they have just crossed the 100 million mark at the domestic box office. Scream 6 has already passed the worldwide total of Scream 2022's box office performance at 152.7 million for this year's movie. Scream 5 only made a little under 140 mil. Now the 6th installment in this slasher franchise has passed 100 million at the United States box office as of this week. It's the first film in the franchise to hit that landmark since the original Scream 2. Speaking of Scream 2, that film ended its domestic run with $101 million, a US total that Scream 6 is likely going to blow past this coming weekend. The original Scream movie still has the highest domestic total though, with 103 million. Now this is of course unadjusted for inflation, but it looks like Scream 6 is going to beat that record, at least, you know, on paper. Worldwide though, things are a little different. The original Scream still leads that pack with a $173 million, once again unadjusted for inflation, and that's a number that Scream 6 may not be able to reach. Scream 6's worldwide total currently sits at 152 million. At the end of the day though, it's not really a competition. All that really matters is that the latest Scream film is doing really well at the box office. This franchise is still alive and well. Fans are mostly digging what they're doing with these new movies. Now, like I was talking about in my last Scream update, kind of getting into some Scream 7 stuff here. It seems like our creatives involved with the last 2 movies may be jumping ship here. Guy Busick was recently on a podcast where he was talking about, I hope the franchise keeps going. And Radio Silence has even hinted a little bit at their departure from the franchise, but they hope that it keeps going. There's a lot of reason to suspect that Radio Silence might be jumping ship here as well. They are attached to many new projects. In fact, they're filming something in Ireland right now. And on top of that, they've also been signed on to direct 3 new Escape from New York films. Guy Busick is also credited as a writer on Final Destination 6, which I'm also very excited for. Overall though, the majority of the creatives here are very busy and hard at work on a bunch of other little projects, so I would understand if they don't want to make a Scream 7. But considering how successful the last 2 installments of this franchise were, it would be insane for them not to do a Scream 7. If you want to hear my predictions for Scream 7 and who I think personally should be attached to the project, if Radio Silence doesn't do it, if Guy Busick and James Vanderbilt don't write, let's say those guys move on to some other projects, here are my thoughts about some of the other people that I would love to see helm a Scream film. But what do you all think about these updates? Scream 6 is doing good at the box office, Evil Dead Rise comes out in a couple of weeks, and Five Nights at Freddy's, man, I'm super hyped for all this stuff. Leave me something about it in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching Jake ramble about horror movies almost every day. I am so tired. If you want to help support this page further though, you can support me on Patreon by clicking that link in the description below. Thank you all for watching again, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.